Hi, this is Kris Castro, and this is the Lead Upside Down podcast, where leaders are sharing how they are leading in non-traditional ways based on Jesus's leadership style. If you have any questions, go back to the trailer episode and that should answer them. But right now, grab your favorite beverage and settle in. If you have any questions or comments, especially if something resonates with you, feel free to go to my website, begin2shift.com, and set up a coffee and conversation meeting, and we can chat about it in more detail. All right, enjoy.
Hey, everybody, it's Kris Castro, and this is the Lead Upside Down podcast. Today, my guest is Jennifer Jackson, and I'm going to go ahead and read her bio. She began pioneering emerging technology when she started her first company out of college. She sold it at age 30 and entered the legal technology and computer forensic field for a Fortune 200 company, leading hundreds of professionals. She then continued her pioneer technology journey in this industry by starting a women-owned tech company. So you can tell she's an entrepreneur. So recently, though, she retired from all of that to focus on other ventures, focusing on social impact. Specifically, she's just launched a water tech company that will give people around the globe access to clean drinking water. And she founded and leads the Fivefold Council, which is a team of business leaders providing advisory services led with prayer, prophetic, and apostolic wisdom to help their clients advance the kingdom of God in their businesses and with their team members. So Jennifer, well-rounded, exciting, and I'm looking forward to talking to you about leading upside down. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Kris. It's always a pleasure to interact with you and be a part of anything you're doing. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And just to give the audience some context, the Lord has been bringing really cool people into my life over the last 6 months. And we were introduced through another connection that I have. We were working on a project together, and that gave us an opportunity to get to know each other. And we just kind of became really fast friends, and it was wonderful.
Yes, kindred spirits for sure. And it's so fascinating you say that because with the season and era we're in the kingdom, I feel the same way that lives are intersecting for such purpose. So thank you.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, everybody that's watching, if you've watched any of the podcasts, you know I start off with 2 questions, then we take a break, and then we move into a deeper dive on wherever we go from there. And it's always fun and always insightful. And so my first question to you, Jennifer, is what does Lead Upside Down mean to you, and how has leading upside down affected your life and work?
Yeah, that's a deep, good question right out of the gate. But clearly leading upside down is leading like Jesus. And I know years ago I read the book Jesus CEO, and that was sort of my first taste of how leadership can be different. But for me, it's been truly following what he did. And what I noticed about Jesus is he was very loving, very affirming, very accepting, but also very firm but kind. And so for me, it's that old adage that people don't care about what you know until they know that you care. And so that's always been the premise for me is that as a believer, you know, when people are under your leadership, that's by God's hand, that's by God's design, and that's very serious and it's very weighty. And so I've always tried to look at the individual and look deeper than just the role they're playing for me in a company. So it truly changed my life as I began to, first of all, get healed. And I think we'll touch on that later myself, so that my own insecurities, pride was something I really, the Lord really put his finger on and dealt with me, but really understanding the person and how I can best serve them, help them, make them the best version of themselves, support them. So I found that leadership, instead of being a drain, because people can be exhausting, let's just be honest, it became a joy as I began to look deeper past what I was seeing on the surface. When I developed the courage to say what they needed to hear, but deliver it out of kindness and love, And I think a lot of leaders miss that. They don't know how to deliver tough news. And so I've got tons of stories about how when I began to develop courage and the platform to deliver that message, and people understood that I was only telling them that because I cared, that for me was the key shift in my leadership.
Nice. Well, the last question before we take a break is for everybody watching who may want to lead upside down and have never done so, or has been doing it a while but might want to do it better. What would your advice be?
Candidly, I feel like the more you as a leader get healed, the more you surrender and yield your own false beliefs, mindsets. Again, pride, that's a big one for a lot of people in leadership when you're strong-willed and you're, if you know the DISC, when you're a D, I'm an eight Enneagram, which means I want to challenge and I like to change things. So for me, really dealing with my pride and surrendering that to the Lord, that was a key. So I think a lot of leaders um, sort of downplay the need for getting their own healing, their own surrender, their own time with the Lord to say, Lord, what in me needs to go so that I can be a better version of you, or, me representing you. So that, and as we work with leaders in our fivefold council you mentioned that I founded, we tend to quickly migrate there to the inner healing, the self awareness, the understanding how you're showing up, how you're presenting. And so that to me is a major game changer in learning to lead like Jesus, lead upside down.
I do want to dive in a little bit deeper about the inner healing that you mentioned, because as you know, kind of my story, I've been through that, and there's been a whole bunch of clearing out the obstacles that were preventing me from being the best version I could be so I could do God's work well and
Yes.
love others well. And so I'm really curious about your story and about how leading upside down really intersects with the removing of blockages that you were talking about.
Yes. So my story, in a nutshell, was I was not raised by a Christian family in a Christian family, and my parents divorced at a very young age and were career people. So I jokingly call myself feral. I was feral. I was on my own until I was about 30 when I came to Christ. So I had the major blockage, as you put it. I learned from an early age, if it's to be, it's up to me. And that is not a Christ-like life. That is a, self-focused, prideful life. I learned to pull myself up by my bootstraps, make things happen. So now, as I have received inner healing, and like you said, dealt with my own um, upbringing, because we all have upbringings that institute false beliefs, wrong, ungodly mindsets. We all have it, even if you were raised in a Christian family. The world and life does that to us. So we all have the opportunity and the invitation to remove those blockages by understanding where we are misaligned with God, where we have, like me, where I've been leaning into my own understanding, where I've been relying on myself way too much. I made some bad decisions. I made a mess of my life in certain ways before I came to Christ. And then so my life is markedly, BC after. That's when my career skyrocketed. That's when I had a lot less chaos, drama, trauma. So it's amazing how when we lean into that, when we actually can get outside of ourselves enough and get over ourselves. That's the one thing the Lord used to say to me is you need to get over yourself, little girl. And when he speaks to you, it's not a condemning, it's a bless your heart. You need to get over yourself. And so that changed everything. And that's how my life intersected, and I became a much better leader. And I've got wonderful stories of people that just gave me a really hard time that worked for me, subterfuge, slander, underlining. And then as I just continued to get healed myself and lean into his ways, so many of them have come to me over the years and thanked me and apologized to me and said, you made a difference. And I know that's only because of going through that process and leaning into the Lord more.
Yeah, and I think it's important to reiterate that your life doesn't generally turn around in a flash and everything is all wonderful like 24 hours later.
Yes,
Most people do not have that um, Damascus Road moment where life was one way and then it was another. Like most people
exactly.
don't. Most people have this journey of day by day, step by step, organically learning, releasing, understanding. And it's a process.
Yes, yes. We must be tested and salted by fire. That's the only way. And that's only by process, by walking it out, by wandering in the wilderness and getting charred skin. It's all that process. And by His grace, it is so worth it.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
So a lot of the guests that I talk to when we kind of dig into the concept of leading upside down, I always ask them how it's affected their sphere of influence, because some people are really good with it and other people are not so good with it. And so I would love for you to share a couple of stories about the experiences you've had leading upside down and how it's affected other people around you.
Yeah, like I said, part of the story, and it happened recently with this one gentleman who really disliked me because I took his boss's job, and there was some codependent relationship going on with the two of them. And so, like I said, he tried every manner and way to undermine, dismantle, discredit, but I just held the course. And at one point, I needed to address a real issue with this gentleman, and his former boss, my boss, said, that's not going to go well with you for you if you address this because he's not going to receive it. And I said, well, I have to do what I need to do and approach him in love, with some firmness and professionalism. And it didn't go well for me. But years later, he came back to me and said, you made all the difference. My whole career changed. I learned to grow up because of that feedback. You're holding firm. So I know for me, again, I think it really does boil down to being healed enough to not come at someone through your own filters and then having the courage out of care. My courage is always rooted in care for the person. And our mutual friend Ford Taylor in his transformational leadership training, which we've gone through and we all love, says you have to care about the person more than you care about what they think of you. And that was part of my journey of getting over myself. Everyone likes to be liked, but when you're a leader, you don't get to be liked. You get to model Jesus, and not everyone liked him, but he had the strength and the fortitude and the foundation of the God in him to withstand that. So I think you asked, yeah, that was one story. And what was the rest of the question?
No, it was just how it's affected a variety of
Mm,
people around you. So you've given a story about a person who was negative and then flipped to
mhm.
positive. Do you
Yes.
have a story of someone who really felt connected to that style of leadership and journeyed with you forward?
Oh, yes, tons. And we don't always get to know what people really think about us and the impact we've made on a life until either, we read our own obituary, or for me, I really got a lot of feedback recently when I retired from the industry after 27 years, the legal services and technology industry. And I put my announcement on LinkedIn. And the comments and the feedback I received truly blew me away of how I affected careers, how I helped someone change their trajectory. They were going one way and they switched. And I just, reading those and reading the people from my company wrote on note cards and put it in a big glass jar for me too, the impact. And so we don't often get that feedback in real time or while we're still in the land of the living. So I've had so many people tell me, and the people that's still on the journey with me, she's been on the journey with me 25 years, says to me, No one else could talk to me as directly as you and as lovingly as you and straighten me out when I was going sideways, because I knew you loved me. And so I get a lot of that kind of feedback too. And you have to be able to receive that kind of feedback. I ask for that same feedback with people in my life. And I'm certainly the other key. I am surrendered and submitted to other mentors, and I have spiritual parents, I have spiritual aunt and uncles that know they can correct me, challenge me, redirect me, and that makes all the difference too. It's almost like the centurion when he went to Jesus and said, "If you don't have to come to my house to heal my servant. If you just say the word, he'll be healed." And remember, Jesus marveled, and it wasn't just because of his faith. If you read on in the passage, it was because he understood authority. He said, "I'm a man under authority, and I have authority." And so, to me, that's been another key in my journey is being surrendered and submitted to people and willing to also receive candid feedback.
Yeah, and the key I think that you're saying through everything you just mentioned is really having a kingdom perspective. We don't
Yeah.
know what's going on deeper in most people. And so we're just responsible for being Jesus in the moment, in the opportunity he places. And then we just move on and do whatever we have to do from there. And we're blessed when we do find out later that it made a difference. And we're blessed to be able to have the opportunity to honor Jesus and partner with him with things that are going on around us. So
Exactly.
I think that's one of the learnings that I've grown in is when people aren't happy with me or things are being really, really hard or they're not going well or I'm just annoyed because things are not moving,
Yeah.
whatever it is. I really have to step back and remember I'm not in charge of my life. I'm not in charge of anything that's going on around me. Jesus is, and he's got the
Mhm.
master plan, and I just have to walk with him in his timing, in his way, and trust that he's doing stuff even though I don't see it.
Exactly. And one of my favorite sayings, Kris, is dead flesh floats. So I want my spirit to be very much alive and I want my flesh to be dead and under submission, and I can just float in the river wherever God wants to take me. I'm game. I'm not fighting. I'm not swimming against the current. And that has made life so much more fun, enjoyable, easy, like you said, because it's not about me. It's not about what I think things have to happen.
When I was reading your bio to prepare for this interview, one of the catchphrases in the information that I found online was that you help entrepreneurs build businesses that have social impact, correct? Or something like that. Tell us
Yes.
a
Yes.
little bit about what social impact is and why it's really aligned with kingdom thinking.
Yeah. Okay. So in the kingdom, it's like I love the way you put it. Everything's inverse. The first shall be last, the last shall be first. Everything can be inverted. And so in doing kingdom business, we almost have to think differently. If we make decisions in business that are typical, like this employee's not doing their job, they need to be fired. No, no, no. We want to understand, we want to affirm the person. Maybe they're in the wrong role, so the kingdom thinking can be very different than traditional, Christians doing business thinking. But what I do and what I'm focused on now, as you mentioned, is helping people. It's a lot of people think of, certain companies where you do well by doing good. And that's sort of the business aspect of you can do business and you can be for profit, but you need to make an impact in human flourishing. And so for my water technology, that it's not mine, but the Lord gave me the idea. So I'm just stewarding this. It's a for-profit business, but it will absolutely create human flourishing because people will be healthier. They'll get the living water of Christ as they're cleaning their water. Will then create community, will then establish schools, will then establish business startups. So you can see that the business is the vehicle, but then everything should radiate from there to create community, to create human well-being and bring others along and up with you. So I love doing business startups. I do a lot of those in Africa. And a lot of times they want to sell chickens or vegetables on the road. And I'm like, no, we have to think way outside that. We want to create profit, but we want to build a community and then find ways to bless your customers, bless your family, other than just exchanging, doing a transaction. So it's definitely more relational focus than just transactional.
Well, I'm going to kind of open the floor and allow you to really speak from your heart about anything that you think relates to leading upside down, just to help the audience get a fuller concept of it from you.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing and the journey I've been on, we're always on the continuum of growth and personal development and spirit development, but the continuum I'm on is truly seeking the Holy Spirit first, asking his heart, his mind, and then getting direction and strategy and going forward. When we're in business often and when we're leaders, we have our thoughts, our ideas, our methodologies, and we just want to charge. And that's definitely me. Maybe I'm the only one, but I think you probably, because you're a get her done kind of person too, Kris, which makes, I know God has so gifted you with that, but it's getting the heart of God first in a matter. And I got to tell you, what I learned about leading upside down, I learned from a non-Christian CEO I most recently worked with. I was in the C-suite, and does not know God, but we'd be in meetings, and he would think like Jesus, think kingdom, meaning we think this is the most logical way to solve this problem. And he would turn it on its head and say, are we even asking the right question? And every time it was always the person, focused on the development of, is this the right thing to do for that person? Is this the right thing to do? It's not just for our customer, but for our people. And I watched him defend our people sometimes, even to our customers, because sometimes in the name of business and revenue, you'll run over your people to make the customer happy. No, 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 not in the kingdom. It's always a win, win, win. So I just encourage people listening to seek the heart of God first and lean not on your own understanding, as Proverbs 3:5 tells us. It's such a common verse, but it is so profound if you really unpack that and think about not getting your own thoughts, getting his thoughts, and then moving out. And that has changed everything for me. And I'm still, by his grace, learning.
Well, thank you so much, Jennifer, for being a guest. I love everything that you're doing, and the cycle of really effective leadership gets to be multiplied when we ask Jesus to guide us in guiding others. And so I really thank you for that. And for those that are watching, if you really liked what you heard today and you're interested in maybe connecting with Jennifer to possibly work with her or learn a little bit more about what she's doing. If you have, third world country connections where her water system might be a good fit to help communities flourish, just reach out. You can get all of her information in the show notes and have fun getting to know her. So everybody, thank you, Jennifer. And don't forget to lead upside down. And if you ever want to learn how to lead upside down a little bit better from me, feel free to reach out and I'd be happy to chat with you about that.
Thanks so much for hanging out and enjoying the Lead Upside Down podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. And remember, wherever you are, you can lead upside down too, just like Jesus did. Feel free to reach out to me if you want more information or if you think I can serve you in some way. Just go to my website, begin2shift.com, and click on the coffee and conversation icon and set that meeting up. Have a fantastic rest of your day.